Southeast Asian community members, and we also uplift those who have also been criminalized over and over in this country, especially for folks who still are incarcerated. We pathways, prevention of deportation for those facing imminent deportation. Drawing on the deportations have affected our community for a long time. If you understand the history of Southeast Asia was part of U.S.-involved war in Vietnam, the genocide in Cambodia, the secret war in Laos. And those wars caused one of the largest displacements that this country has ever seen. The largest refugee development project this country has ever seen. The U.S. was bombing Southeast Asia in the 60s into the 70s, and when all of us lost family members and were displaced, we were asked to resettle into a country that was really foreign to us, but we resettled at the time where the United States was going through the largest prison building project this world has ever seen. Also, we were resettling during a time when the United States state governments and local officials were giving way more funding for police officers to incarcerate us, to criminalize us, and to deport us. I call it the perfect storm. We resettled in the perfect storm. If you can recall where all Southeast Asian populations live or are populous at, we can think about where there are high rates of incarceration and deportation. Long Beach, Stockton, Boston, Oakland, Atlanta, Philly. Am I missing other cities that Cambodian people are at? Minnesota, Seattle. All these places are targets for incarceration and deportation. We are asking the government to stop criminalizing us and stop deporting us. So when y'all have the chance, I encourage you to walk along this pathway and look at the timeline about where our communities have been hurt, injured, and done wrong. One of the people that was caught up on this timeline where a lot of us heard a lot of the media over it was PJ. PJ, are you here? Hi, PJ. So PJ is a really close friend of mine. I met PJ in San Quentin State Prison. And when PJ was incarcerated, PJ was monumental in starting an ethnic studies, Asian American studies program in San Quentin State Prison.
Not alone.
And when I met PJ, I was like, actually, fun story. When I was looking to go to college, and I went to college, I was like, oh, where are all my Cambodian people at? There was probably me and like 2 other Cambodians. But when I went to San Quentin State Prison, I saw a lot of Cambodian people, and I was like, this is where my Cambodian people are at. And I don't think it is a result of them being criminal. I think it's a result of the United States criminalizing our community, right? And PJ was one of those members. He was a phenomenal member of Roots, the class, the Ethnic Studies, Asian American Studies class, and we fought for him. So right after PJ paroled out of San Quentin State Prison, he was directly transferred over to ICE. And at that moment, our community said no more. We said, fuck that. So we said, we're gonna bring PJ home. And bring PJ home caught the nation by storm. Asian America was not ready for this movement, but we made them ready. And when PJ got out, bring PJ home became Keep PJ Home. We did a statewide campaign, and he was allowed to plead his case at the Board of Paroles for a pardon. Right now, the Supreme Court denied PJ's application along with 9 other clemencies, but we are still fighting for PJ, and we are still very thankful that PJ is here to join with us. And I'm going to give the mic to PJ to talk a little bit about his story in this case. Well, actually, you're going to be later in the program. I just wanted you all to see PJ. PJ is a phenomenal freedom fighter. You'll get to hear from him later. I'm going to give the mic back to my co-MC Tia for us to lead through the rest of the program.
Thank you for that, Nate. And I think as I've seen this dragon in a few multiple spaces, and I think when we think about deportation, it's really important to think about the history and all the decisions and all the policies that kind of led to the mass criminalization of our Southeast Asian population, what brought us to this country, right? So let's definitely take a look at that when you get a chance. So next up, I'm actually going to invite Elijah back up to the stage, who's going to lead us in another song. We could see Elijah. Okay, Elijah is on his way. Hey, if we give a round of applause to Elijah, please.
cover song, so if you guys want to.
Hi everyone. Thank you for coming back. And thanks for being here and this really special day for our community. Oh, thank you. And actually I think I need one of those too.
Do we do updates? We haven't did updates. Do we need to do updates right now?
No updates.
Do you want to no updates?
So can we bring everyone together? Let's gather closer together, please. And unfortunately we heard the sad news that they did detain Hai earlier. So yes, please come closer. They actually do not want us on the streets, they want us on the sidewalk. So please, just gather in like one big family that we are. So, I was thinking, what would be an uplifting song? What would people know? What could we sing together during this time? And I was looking up actually civil rights music and music that came from that time, that era in the 60s. And I was actually surprised to see that Benny King wrote the song during that time. So I think it's appropriate to sing with us now that we stand together. We stand with these families and we stand with the impacted families and those that are being detained and deported. They need to hear our voices. So if you want to sing along, please do. Raise your voices and stand together. I can start us off, but this is something for us. This is our chorus. This is what they need to hear. Does anybody want to sing some backup toot-toot-toots? Or maybe the whole community can go toot toot doo 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 doo.
What is song is started right now.
When the night has come and the land is dark and the moon is the only light we'll see. No, I won't be afraid. No, I won't be afraid. Just as long as you stand by me. So darling, darling, stand by me. Oh, stand by me. Oh, stand by me. Stand by me.
Don't be afraid.
If the sky that we look upon should tumble and fall, or the mountains should crumble to the sea, I won't cry, no, I won't shed a tear, just as long as you stand by me. And darling, darling, stand by me. Oh, stand by me. Oh, stand by me. Stand by me. Oh, darling, darling, stand by me. Oh, stand by me. Oh, stand by me. Stand by me. Thank you. And Monica, I think I see you in the crowd. Right, before Monica comes up, or Monica, you can come up.
Right now?
Yeah.
Do you want to go up first?
I speak it. Okay, Professor. Okay. Excuse me.
You do it.
Thank you, Elijah, for that. You have a beautiful voice, by the way. So next up, I actually wanted to, actually, can we give Elijah another round of applause for leading us? Yes. I think definitely utilizing all our talents is important to the movement, right? Yeah. Okay. So next up, I actually want to welcome up Professor Russell Zhang to the stage.
Hey!
Okay. Hey, can we give a round of applause for Professor Russell, please?
Good morning, everybody. Bye. I'm Professor Russell Jung. I'm Chair of Asian American Studies at San Francisco State, and this is our 50th anniversary of the founding of ethnic studies. 50 years ago, students went on strike for 5 months, and they wanted ethnic studies for a relevant education, to reclaim our histories, to reclaim our stories. And today is just a continuation of Asian American history and resistance. Asian exclusion still continues today, and Southeast Asian deportations with the 16,000 families facing deportation is just another example of American policies that exclude, deport, and create a climate of fear in our communities. Actually, I was just talking to my son today that America is just a state-sponsored terrorist state. You know, when you think about it, when Southeast Asians commit crimes, but they pay for their crimes and they spend time in jail, and yet they get punished yet again by being deported, that's terrorism. That's wrong. When you think about families being separated for a lifetime, that's terrifying. That's wrong. It's just like families at the border, what Southeast Asian families are facing today, it's wrong. And when I think about children who get traumatized by their families being separated, by seeing their dads in another country, my wife's a pediatrician at Asian Health Services, and she sees a lot of trauma, and I even see a lot of intergenerational trauma. This deportation is just another traumatizing act by the government, by our own American government. And so our policies are terrorists of themselves, and we're sort of, if we're at a war on terrorism, we're at war with ourselves. It's just all wrong. So even though I'm a fifth generation American, I know that a lot of these guys who are being deported are more American than I am. They're vets, they've served their community, they care about their cities. And so the whole issue of Southeast Asian deportation, I tell our students, is probably the biggest issue facing our Asian American communities today. Because not only does it impact a large percentage of our communities, but it has a devastating, significant consequence. And because of that, it's one of the major policy issues we're facing. But not only are Southeast Asians more American than I am, I know a lot of them who are getting deported are more Christian than I am. And as a person of faith, I also want to speak as a faith leader to encourage and to motivate you, and especially the families who are facing deportation. They say African Americans have a theology of liberation, that Latinos have a theology of borderlands. And I'm going to argue that Asian Americans, we have a theology of exile, because we've always been dispossessed by war. We've always been displaced by violence. And again, people who are getting deported are being twice exiled, doubly exiled. And for Asian Americans to have a theology of exile means we have to understand and comprehend and make sense of why does this happen? Why does God allow this to happen? And how do we as people of faith respond when we face unfair, unjust, inexplicable situations? In Jeremiah, the Bible talks about how Jeremiah wrote a letter to people in exile, like Vietnamese, like Cambodians, like Mien, Khmer people that I know. And the first thing he writes is that, and this was actually written to the second generation of exiles, so it's a lot like the Southeast Asian second generation and 1.5 generation. The first thing Jeremiah says is to settle down and have families. which is actually sort of a paradoxical statement. But for us to create families in America, to still continue to be families even though we're separated by oceans, that's an act of resistance. God's calling us to be families and to resist. That despite what the government's doing to us, despite what transnational corporations are trying to perpetuate, we can still be family, and that's what God's calling us to do. Secondly, he tells us to seek the shalom of the city. And again, that's paradoxical. Why should we seek the peace of the United States when it tears us apart? But that too is a call for us to be able to let go, the Buddhist principle of letting go. It calls for us as Christians to forgive and to at least live at peace among ourselves, that even if the world doesn't give us peace, we can be people of peace. And finally, Jeremiah tells us to pray. And when I think about prayer, it's not this passive thing where we're using it as an opiate of the masses, but prayer is actually calling to the high judge of heaven. What could be more active? What could be more resistant? What could be more militant than to go and complain to God about what's going on? So I encourage you all, especially today as people are facing greater and greater threats, that we could be people of peace to continue to be families for each other, that we continue to seek peace within and peace with our brothers and sisters, and to pray and to call on God for justice. Thank you.
So the next speaker is a good friend, is a sister, and I'll never forget when Monica walked into our lives. She came to Siri because she is an artist in residence at Bantai Serai. So she's sharing her skills and talents to the Southeast Asian community. She's a Stegner Fellow at Stanford, and we really have to give her mad props. She's second generation Khmer, and she's about to publish a book of poetry, and she can tell more about that. When I ask Monica to come through, she comes through. When I ask her how we should hold our community and how to hold our youth, she really gives all of her ideas and gives her heart and puts everything into this. And she's been there, even as an outsider in the Bay Area, she's been there when we've needed her, and she's here with us now. So can you give her a round of applause?
Hi everyone. Hi. I'm going to read some poems. I'm very emotional. I'm a daughter of diaspora, like many of you. My parents lived through the killing fields, and I write about this all the time. And I think about this all the time. And I think about how my family resisted during the genocide, and how our families all did that, and we're here today. My grandfather dug a hole for my mom so she could hide. That's how they stayed together. We're here to advocate for our people and our community, and I'm honored to be here as well alongside all of you. Here's a poem that I wrote a long time ago, and today I just added a little bit more to it for today specifically. It's called Yearning. Yearning. I want to know the names of things, only the names in Khmer. I want to know the names of trees whose roots grow on temple roofs. I don't want to know my uncle was never found. When my aunts looked for his face, his was not there. I don't want to learn my aunt's twin sister died, or why Bang Soka's father got killed. I want to know the names of things tasty as cold shrimp zucchini soup. I want to know the meanings of our dance, our movements. When our hands point in the distance, I want to know if the war is far, but the war is always near. Don't let my brothers and sisters born in refugee camps be deported to Cambodia, a country they've never been. Don't let my brothers and sisters be taken from their children. I want the children to have a chance to feel safe and loved and free. I want to tell my mom the world will be done in her mind, that she will rise out of the dirt hole my grandfather dug to hide her. I want to taste the last sweet thing my grandfather gave my mom, a sweet potato on his deathbed. I am the name of all these things. Hold our hands at the prison gate. Help us dig a blessing from this rice. Let us cross our legs to pray. Let the monks fan us with river chants. We will fight. We will win. May we all be happy together. May we always be together.
Let's give Monica another round of applause.
Why do I feel like I'm the verb that news every time I come and speak? Ruin Peck, they detained him, they arrested him, and most likely he'll be transferred to Yuba as well, along with Hai. And Safana, they did not detain him, they released him because of his mental condition. And right now we're just waiting on Kun. No word on the decision that they're going to make with Kun. So that's the update. And if we could just have a moment of silence for Hai and Hai and Ruin. With that, it leads me to what, I don't know if you've been following, what Asian Law Caucus and other attorneys throughout the country have been working towards. Melanie's here, Melanie Kim, along with Asian Law Caucus, are a great, amazing attorney, and Kevin. They've been working on helping to get our community members back home. And there's been 2 successes so far. Thorn Tem, he returned a few months ago. He was able to get his case vacated. And most recently, Vietnam Meth, another community member that got deported 5 years ago. Melanie and Kevin were able to get his case overturned, and Cambodia and the United States, they cooperated, and they ordered, for Vietnam to come back home to his family. So they warned him, welcomed him back to the San Francisco airport. He's home with his children and his family. I mean, that's 2 victories, and the goal is to help returnees return, because some of them do have cases that are winnable, and it's hard because we're working so hard trying to push back with all these raids and arrests, and with the time that we have, we need more, help and support in that field. That the amazing work that Asian Law Caucus and the attorneys are doing, throughout. And Vietnam unfortunately cannot be here today, but I do have a statement from him. Right now, he's in Sacramento with his family, and he says, "Hello, my name is Vietnam, but everybody calls me AB. I was blessed to reunite with my family recently on February 27th, 5 years after being deported to Cambodia. For 5 years, I never lost hope. I always told everybody, other deportees in Cambodia, to never lose hope. It doesn't matter if it takes 2 or 10 years to fight to come home. Don't give up hope because laws change, or maybe you didn't get your fair shot in your immigration case. Nothing happens overnight. We are in it for the long fight. To the families that are facing deportation, stick to your loved ones' side. Be there for them and support them. Keep fighting for them. Being away from our loved ones is hard, but we are going to stay strong and never give up the fight. Keep your head up and never give up hope. So that goes saying to Tith Prox and to Hai and to Ruin that we are here with them, with their families as a community, that we're going to continue to support them and to get them here, to remain here, stop their deportation, and continue to work on other Cambodian Americans, help them return. So that's our goal. Thank you.
So like we did for Hai, we'll do for Ruin. So when I say his name, we'll say, I'm committed to your freedom, right? So, Ruin, I'm committed to your freedom. Remember, he could hear us. Yeah. Ruin, I'm committed to your freedom. Ruin, I'm committed to your freedom. Ruin, I'm committed to your freedom.
Let it go. Let him go.
Yes.
Right? Let him go. Let
Free
him go.
them all. Let him go. All right. So because we are a rally, I do want us to, and we're all a little bit cold, so I do want us to warm up. But first, if we can try to move closer to the curb, so I don't have to. Well, I don't have to yell because I have a mic, so no one can bother us. So this next one, this next chant goes like this. Goes down, down with deportation. You can repeat after me. Down, down with deportation. Up, the second part. Ready? Up with liberation.
Okay.
Okay, ready?
Okay.
I'll say that one more time. Don't repeat yet. Down, down with deportation. Up with liberation. Everyone got it?
Okay.
Okay, ready? Down, down with deportation. Up with liberation. Down, down with deportation. Up with liberation. All right, that was practice. That was really quiet. All right, everyone got it down now?
I wish I got the energy.
Okay, ready? Down, down with deportation. Up with liberation. Down, down with deportation. Up with liberation. I had an ice officer look at me, so I gave him the middle finger real quick. Yeah, so up next, is PJ here? PJ? So PJ's not here, so I can talk more about PJ until he gets here. I think he went to the restroom. Well, I'll talk a little bit about the importance of coming together and supporting each other as a community. So, the way the nation, or the way Cambodian communities across the nation have responded to deportation is asking their governors to grant pardons to those who have deportation orders. So pardons have been an effective way to stop deportations. So people who have been given pardons before, Sir Un, Moni Net, Paul Suk, and Billy Tang, who was here, all had community support to fight for their pardons. So know that there are other avenues to stop deportation, and also know that we will try every avenue to get our community members free. And the way you can get involved, I'm gonna skip over, right? Oh, okay. So the way you can get involved, oh, PJ's right there. PJ, hurry up. Come on, I'm running out of things to say.
No, that's not impossible.
I know, he's gonna hop on the bus. All right. Come on, PJ, run, hurry. Okay, don't run. Oh, okay. We also have a handout that we can give to you all later. Come on, PJ. Come on. So again, PJ is a really good friend of mine. PJ has a campaign, Keep PJ Home. It's still alive and well. We want PJ to stay with us. We want all folks impacted by incarceration and deportation to stay with us. We want them to all be free, and we won't stop till all of them are free. Because none of us are free. Where's that song? Because none of us are free until all of us are free. Check it. All right. So here is PJ.
Thank you so much, Nate, for everything you do. That's one of the best historians I've ever met. But so I am very fortunate to be here today because I took a very long journey to get to where I'm at today. And I think I'm so inspired by so many people who was there for me. And I don't think I could stand at this moment without community support, without the love of my families, without the love of my friends. APSC has been with me for a long time, supporting me through that process and also advancing justice. And I mean, today I do a lot of advocacy work in the community because of that. So a little bit about my story is that like all Southeast Asian community, especially Cambodians, my family was a survivor of a genocide. My mom and her sister was the only survivor. My dad lost everyone pretty much. And so we originally went to Thai to escape the condition of the Khmer Rouge. And my mom met my dad there, right? She originally went with she originally had two sons. One was a baby and the other one was like 5 years old, my older brother. And the baby died because my mom didn't have enough food to feed the baby. She couldn't produce milk because she couldn't eat. And so that was from the confinement in the refugee camp. And when she went to Thai, she originally was, thinking as a young woman with a kid, very vulnerable, and in a foreign country, in a land full of soldiers and bandits and stuff. And so she was vulnerable, and she looked to my dad for support when she met him. And my dad was a kind person, and they got married, and I was born in the refugee camp. So I grew up in the refugee camp, still remembering all the danger of it. Right? I know, like they said, you can forget memories and stuff, but you never forget how you feel about certain things. And I remember always feeling afraid all the time, feeling like something is going to happen, because I remember like my mom used to wake us up in the middle of the night, putting us underneath the table, and I'm not sure what's happening. It was like a lot of commotion and noise from the outside. So, that was my experience with Thai. I mean, I just in the refugee camp, I just remember feeling afraid all the time, feeling unsettled, feeling unrested, right? And we came to the United States when I was 5, closer to 5, thinking that, it's a new beginning, we're gonna have opportunity to start over, there's a promise that life will be better. And when I came to the United States, my mom was really homesick. My dad was really sick from not, from being away from home, from losing loved ones. And then they were really confusing because in the country, not speaking the language, trying to adapt to a culture was difficult. And my mom reached out to people and found out there was like a big Cambodian community in Stockton. Stockton was a refuge, a place where my mom and my dad could relate to people, could have people who knows, could relate to our experience, could be like more supportive, right? And that turned out to be different, right? And when we got there to Stockton, we went to a community that was all traumatized by war and violence, by losing family members, by not having support, untrusting of outside, and feeling really isolated, right? And I was in that environment as a young man, like a child, like really feeling isolated also at the time, right? And I remember like going to school, having a hard time fitting in because the cultural differences, the language barrier, and then like coming home, to my mom, who's like basically on her own, dealing with the challenges of adapting to countries. And I always felt like I don't want to burden my mom. I don't want to add more on her plate. So stuff would happen in school, I would not tell her. I always felt that way, right? I felt that my mom has gone through so much, and my dad ended up getting involved in drugs a lot, like alcohol and stuff, like just to numb the experience of loved ones. Like he didn't know how to deal with that, and I think I grew up feeling abandoned for a long time, and until I learned later on as an adult, when I got involved in counseling services, that that was how my dad coped with the loss of his loved ones, and I felt so much empathy for him now, understanding where he come from and what was going on for him. And so I got in trouble when I was a kid. I remember, like my life changes, increments, like stages that happens in my life that just like really changed the way I see the world. One of them was losing my cousin and losing my community members during a school shooting in Stockton. Actually, Patrick Purdy was the gunman that came to Cleveland Elementary School and actually opened fire to a playground. And that was actually the first school shooting in United States history, and people don't know that. And Columbine was not the first one. And that was target, mainly Cambodian and Southeast Asian community kids, like that was a statement. And I remember like being on that playground when it happens, and then feeling, knowing like at that moment that was like a huge testament that I don't belong here, like they don't want me here, right? That people don't even care, right? To the point where like they were murdering us on the playground. And I remember that same similarity, like I left the refugee camp, the gunshot and everything, the constant, fear, like that was the same, like it's the same, nothing different, right? And I'm in an environment, in a community where there's a lot of gangs and stuff too, so constantly every night you could hear that sound, right? And I remember like watching my dad, my mom getting really scared, chasing us underneath the table, like from the gunfire, and then like the sound of helicopter and stuff would like drive my dad crazy because he would remember what it's like in the war. And like I grew up seeing that stuff, and I really understand, really confused, like why is dad like that? Like why is he like, some kind of somewhat crazy, right? And then, I started getting involved with bullies when I was a kid. And I was getting jumped by bullies all the time because apparently I was an easier target as a foreigner, and I would just always fight back, and then eventually that led me to finding safety, finding community, finding families in the gangs, right? And I think most Southeast Asian community experienced that, like getting heavily in gangs, because that was how we adapt. That's how we adapt to our environment. That's how we find safety. That's how we find a sense of family and acceptance, right? A lot of us are lost, and then I didn't realize that until I went to prison and for a crime I committed at 14, making me like the youngest juvenile lifers in the system. I had a life sentence, and unfortunately I learned, got involved in programs and learned about accountability, learned about how my action affects my community, how it harm another person, how it harm another family, and that inspired me, it motivated me. I was ashamed of my action too, and so like it pushed me to become a better person. So I started getting involved with restorative justice practices. I went to school, I get a college degree, and graduating, get my GED, became a counselor. I started working with the community, and so I started to look back at my life and like realize why I do all these things and why I got involved in these services. It's because like I love my community. No one was there for me when I needed help, right? And I see like what Nate said, like a lot of Cambodian people, a lot of Southeast Asian people are in prison. Between the 90s and the 80s, like we're coming into the system, and I'm hearing like the elder telling me like, like before, you guys doesn't exist. Like mostly we see in prison are Mexican, black, white, and so some once in a while see Chinese, maybe Japanese, but like Southeast Asian did not exist in prison. We started coming in the 80s and 90s, and there's so many of us, and I think that was because a lot of us got in trouble with kids because we ended up in gangs because no one was there for us because we didn't have no community, and we tried to create our own community, try to find community, and some along the way we got in trouble. And so I say all this to say that we're all redeemable, and obviously I've learned the hard way about my own accountability, and I want to make my community a better place, and a lot of us who has been out is making the community a better place. And you see today the detained folks, our own relative, for something they did when they were kids, something they always served their time for, and I feel like this is really unjust, right? To continue for our people to continue to feel separation, to continue to feel the pain of not being with your families, of being separated from your families. I feel like it's been over 3 decades, and we're still feeling separation, right? We're still feeling, I'm still afraid. I mean, I was afraid when I was born. I'm afraid as a grown man today, I'm afraid to be separated from my loved ones. I'm afraid to be ripped away from my community, and I feel like, when is it gonna end? When is this gonna end? So I hope that the community would see this an opportunity, see this as a way for us to come together in solidarity, do this work, and support each other. And how do we make enough noise, right, that we matters, right? I think Cambodian people need to make noise because we do matter, right? Yeah. We need to make some noise, Tell the world that we belong here, like this is our home, like we've been here since we're kids. Not by choice, we were forced to come here for safety, right? And I hear you saying, and it struck me so hard, like, I'm here because they're there. Right? That's why I'm here. And so where's the accountability in that, right? Where's the accountability in that? I think we all owe each other that accountability to support each other.
So I want to talk a little bit more about PJ's case. So when PJ was detained in ICE, how long were you in ICE, PJ?
For 18 months.
18 months in ICE. We linked up with your brother and your mom, and his mom doesn't speak a lot of English, only speaks Khmer. And his mom came through to every time we went to Sacramento to talk to our elected officials, PJ's mom would come through and speak to the elected officials in Khmer and pour her heart out. And I think it was one of the most monumental things and the most game-changing things for your campaign. So for those who have loved ones deportation, you know, there is power in our voices, right? Whether we speak English fluently or not, there's power in our voices.
And my mom actually, her voices in the in-bank hearing with all the commissioner, 14 commissioner, that the pro board commissioner that Nate talked about earlier, they were so touched by her testimony, by her support and love for me, that they actually recommended my pardon for governor. And if not for the Supreme Court, I think I would already have the pardon. So it does matter. If you have a voice, you love your family, like your voice, your story matters. I think that is powerful and it should be told, you know, it should be told.
Yep. That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. Hey,
We owe each other everything because we are all we got, right? So real quick, report back. Did you get the report back?
Right now, Kuan just went in, but nothing yet. He just went inside.
So going around is our kind of next step. So there are many ways to get involved. Is there anyone from SB 54 rally here to talk about SB 54 rally?
No updates yet.
Okay, so there's no updates on SB 54. They'll be in our hearts. But getting passed around is a call to action sheet. So like I said, this is not a moment for us as a Cambodian American community. This is a movement, and there are many ways to keep this work going, right? So you can go to Sacramento and talk to your elected officials. But we also really want to put pressure on Governor Newsom for him to pardon our community members. So a few of our community members have pardons. So you can actually tweet. So if you have a Twitter, you can tweet Gavin Newsom. If you don't have a Twitter, you can make a Twitter and then tweet Gavin Newsom. And if you are strongly opposed to getting a Twitter, you can also call Gavin Newsom, and there's a script for you. And every time you tweet, call, or send in a piece of mail, the governor's office has to document it. So we want to flood Governor Newsom's office with support for our community members. Right? We want to show Gavin Newsom that the Cambodian American community has contributed to California for a long time. And this is home to us just as much as it is to anyone else. If anyone should be deported, it should be ICE. Yes. Also a call to action. So there is a petition that has been made by Daily Cost, sponsored by Asian Law Caucus and Asian Prisoner Support Committee. Pass it around to your networks, take it to Temple, take it to what? Take it to your schools, take it to your jobs. Ride for this community like your lives depended on it, right? So a real quick practice that I think that can empower us to keep this. So can I have everyone close their eyes real briefly? So I want us to think about the person we love most in this world. And now I want us to ask ourselves, what if we loved everyone in the world that way? There is very little we wouldn't do for their freedom. So you all can open your eyes. So that power of love will set us free. Tweet the governor, call the governor, sign the petition, come to the demonstrations until all of us are free. Other things that you can support, so Asian Prisoner Support Committee, Asian Law Caucus, and Survived and Punished are constantly working on campaigns to stop deportations, not only Cambodian Americans, but Asian Americans and immigrants who have been funneled through the incarceration system, the deportation system. So a campaign going on right now is the Free Maria Luna campaign. Maria Luna is a Filipina who spent 20 years in prison and is currently facing deportation to the Philippines. I just came back from the Philippines 3 weeks ago and visited my friend who got deported, and he said no one deserves to be deported. So we have to stand up for everyone who's facing deportation. Currently, Maria Luna has a bond set up through a GoFundMe page, so if you can support, donate to the GoFundMe page. So materially supporting people who are impacted is also really important. Another campaign is Free Leah, and Free Leah is being spearheaded by Survived and Punished, but Leah Baru, is that how you pronounce it? Baru, is a black immigrant from Ethiopia who is a survivor of domestic violence and is currently facing deportation for defending herself from her abusive ex-husband. She was facing deportation. Share her story, get the word out there. Also call Governor Newsom to protect all immigrants and refugees funneled into this deportation pipeline. And lastly, like we said earlier in this demonstration, 45 reported incidents of check-ins were given all across the nation. And one is Saray Pin in Seattle. She's a Khmer community member in Tacoma, a mom arrested by ICE detention. She is also facing deportation. And just to give a little context, domestic violence survivors also face high rates of incarceration and deportation. To survive domestic violence has always been a crime. If you fight back, it's a crime. If you run away, that's a crime. So this is why we need to support domestic violence survivors in this movement and support everyone who's gone through this kind of deportation machine. So now I'm going to hand it back to Tyr to close us out. Or Nia, did you want to grab the mic?
We're going to stay till
Okay.
folks are welcome to stay.
Okay. So after our closing remarks, a lot of us will stay in the end until everyone has either checked in and they came out, or until we get a report back. So everyone is feel free to stay and also wait for these updates. But we understand that this is the middle of the week, it's a work day, so we appreciate everyone coming out during their busy schedule to support this work. But I'm going to give it to Tyr.
Thank you, Nate, for those words again. Nate is one of my heroes. He is an amazing activist, and I always love to hear him share. Again, thank you everybody for coming through today to support our families checking in today, also just to support our community in general, folks impacted by deportation across the country, and continue to be impacted by the deportation machine, right? So just to close off, again, we will be staying here until we get further updates from folks. But just to end off, so we're going to go ahead and go back to our chants, right? Get the energy back up, right? So folks can hear us inside, and that the community knows that we are here for them today, right? Okay, so I will go ahead and get it started. If we fight,
We win!
if we fight,
We win!
if we fight,
We win!
okay. Pyongyang Prachang, right? Pyongyang Prachang, Pyongyang Prachang. I think it is incredible that we finally have a chant in Cambodian. I think it is very empowering to fight, and also the language of our ancestors, right? So thank you everybody for coming, and we will be here. And
If you have a chance, look at the dragon. The dragon is dope. Brought by Asians for Black Lives, because we know that this is a coalition that we're building, a movement. Fighting incarceration also means standing up for other folks impacted by incarceration. That means the Black community, that means indigenous folks, that means folks who have been long subjects of violence or long subjects of state violence. So check out the timeline. We will be here, and if you will wait around, pull out your phones, and we can all call the governor's office together and give him a good wake-up call that he needs to pay attention. Yes. All right, so thank you all for coming.
Thank you. Good job.